Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the very first sort of YouTube Seewithin podcast. So I'm Melissa Gale, and this is Duncan Moore, who's joined me today. Now, I used to do a podcast some years ago. It was for about a period of a year or so. And Duncan, you joined me then, didn't you? Back in, I think it was early 2021.
It must have been.
It must have been quite some time ago. Had a bit of a pause on the podcast and now looking at reviving it once again. So today I'm going to be talking to Duncan Moore, who's director of an organisation called Let's Get Out. And the purpose of this podcast is very much about talking to real people who are doing really fantastic things in their community setting with a focus on health, well-being, mental health for everyone. And today's session is with a particular focus on our young people. So Duncan, welcome.
Hi, Melissa. Sorry, nearly called you the wrong name there.
No, that's
sorry,
right.
apologies. That's my co-director's name. It just nearly come out there. That's a good start.
That's all right. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. You okay?
Yeah, all good. All good. The sun's
Good.
shining, so I'm very pleased about that.
It is for you.
Thank you. So in terms of the podcast that we did back in 2021, we'll come on to sort of details about that, but also the developments really about Let's Get Out. So could you give a bit of an overview about the organisation Let's Get Out? Or what does it entail? What is Let's Get Out? What's its purpose?
Yeah, so me and my one of my co-directors, Scott, we started up Let's Get Out. Well, sort of just near the beginning of sort of COVID period, really, and we started up. We're a community interest company, so not-for-profit company, and our main aim is getting young people outdoors, which we've sort of think is a huge benefit to sort of young people, especially in the modern days with technology and stuff. There is, with the lack of green spaces, the draw of modern technology like mobile phones, there's a lot of removal from enjoying the outdoor spaces, and that a lot of that is happening with our young people. So we started it up to really engage young people with the outdoors. So we run Duke of Edinburgh Award expeditions. We run forest schools and bushcraft clubs and courses for kids. We go into schools and we're recently just working with one of the London councils as well to go down and do some activities with those as well. So whatever we can do basically to get young people outdoors and sort of help them engage with the outdoors like I did when I was younger.
Yeah. And I think that's the way that children have their sort of downtime, enjoyment time these days has changed an awful lot, hasn't it? I think in terms of when we were younger. What is it you feel is so important about them getting to have access to activities outside, such as the ones that you just stated?
Well, I mean, there's huge benefits. I mean, it's kind of the sensory development for them is really important, because if we know what it's all like when you're inside. There's easy distractions. You've got TVs, you've got laptops, mobile phones, but also you're just in when you're indoors, you're in quite a sort of not a high sensory environment. Once you go outside, you've got birds singing, you've got the colours, you've got trees, you've got just the colours around you, the greens and all of these things. They actually stimulate the mind and they open up the mind. And I think everyone knows themselves, if you go out for a walk in nature yourself, how much better you feel. And once kids get out in that environment, they really sort of open up, and it opens all their senses up, not just sort of hearing and sight, but even the smells and all of these different sort of senses, touch and all these things, they sort of come alive. So they just increase well-being and sort of education side of things, because all the senses are heightened. It helps sort of engagement with projects and stuff, so it's a lot better for them.
And would I be right in thinking sort of that the senses can be heightened, but also at the same time calmed as well, because they are outside in a
Yeah,
natural environment. There's lots of research, isn't there, that's been shown about the benefits of being outside in nature. A lot of children these days are often on tech in front of screens, as we all can be as
yeah.
well. What have you found has been your experience? I know that before we've sort of gone live and talking on the recording today, you know, you shared recently sort of a few examples actually in terms of those adjustments for young people coming away from the screens, especially their mobile phones, and that experience of being outside and getting messy. Would
Yeah.
you mind sort of giving a bit of an insight as to what transformation you've seen with young people that you've worked with?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of probably the best one we've taken mobile phones off them is Duke of Edinburgh awards, I would say, for the slightly older ones, because they're sort of starting at 14 years old. They're teenagers, and
Yeah.
they're of that age when they can't lose their streaks on Snapchat, I believe it is. I get all
Mm.
this off my daughter. And they're the ones that are really in connection with their friends. So, but when we go on a Duke of Edinburgh expeditions, we put their phones in a little bag, turn them off, put them in a little bag, tape them up, and give them back to them. So they still have their phones, but they
Mm.
can't use them.
Mm.
Which is interesting to see their faces when you take their phones off of them. They really look mortified. But actually, you really see the difference over that. So imagine on a bronze weekend, if you was away for 2 days and one night,
Yeah.
you really see the communication of the young people grow. Once they get to camp at night, they all around. I mean, a lot of the friendship groups that wouldn't be natural friendship groups, maybe at school,
Yeah.
they're all talking with each other, and just the communication between the group and how much more alert they are, and you know how it is. We always say, if we put the mobile phones back in the mix in the middle of the evening when they'd got back, when they'd finished their first day's walking,
Yeah.
you'd go from a lively camp and a nice sort of happy camp with everyone running around playing games and talking and stuff. You'd go to a silent camp with everyone sitting down,
Wow.
heads down. It would be heads down, like
Yeah.
the technic going on,
Yeah.
and it would just
Completely
stop
changed.
straight away. It would do, yeah. They've still got it in them, young people. It's still got it in them to communicate and have fun when they ain't got their phones with them. But it's just, yeah, it's that. I mean, we're all the same, aren't we? We all get a bit addicted to technology nowadays. It's not just
Yeah.
young people; it's all of us, isn't it? You pick up your phone, there's a notification, and before you know it, you don't remember what you picked up your phone for.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
How are they at handing over the phones? As a parent myself of teenagers,
yeah,
and as you're saying, for all of us, I think it's that bit of a balance, isn't it, in trying to get that right in terms of how much we are all on, and our young people are on tech. It does tend to be, or it can be, tricky to get them to hand over willingly, let's say, their phones. So
yeah,
what's that
it can
like?
be. It's one of the first things we mention on the introduction evenings. So yeah, so we do pre-warn them and build up to it, so it's not like a shock.
Yeah.
But they're all pretty open to it. We've had the odd few say they've not brought their phone because they couldn't use it, and then we found out they have got their phones with them. That happens occasionally. They sneak them in, and believe it or not, sometimes parents want them to have their phones as well. There's
Oh,
some
right.
parents who
Okay.
who have. I'm not saying they've told them to sneak the phone in, but they've said, "I'll just keep it in there in case you need to contact me."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they
A bit
they
of
do have their
reassurance.
phones. I mean, the reason of us wrapping the phones up is they have them for emergency anyway. They have one of our
Yeah.
company phones, what they can communicate in emergencies with us anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting. You see some really interesting faces when they're handing them
Yeah.
over. You get that old not wanting to let it go uh, thing.
I can
But yeah,
imagine.
but as I say, it really genuinely doesn't take long before they've forgotten about it, and
Yeah.
um, and they're just enjoying the experience.
Yeah. And really sort of hearing that, as you said before, about you know noticing the difference. If they all have their phones, suddenly it's all heads down and it all goes quiet. But actually, without their phones, suddenly the communications coming, the interactions happening,
Yeah.
and hopefully they're enjoying being outside as well. Would you mind sharing also the other example you stated when we spoke the other week about a young person who joined you and was maybe not so used to, or not used to at all, in being outside and sort of getting a bit messy, and being in nature. But actually by the end of it, they were really sort of getting involved, carrying and really embracing the whole experience. Do you recall that one?
I give quite a few of them in my head. So
Good example. Go with anyone then.
I mean, there is, well, we get lots of kids when regards to our forest schools,
Yeah.
and things we do over there. We do have children who, yeah, when they come along first time to forest school, they'll be wearing, sometimes they turn up dressed head to toe in waterproof overalls. I mean, it depends on the weather, but they will get, a little bit of mud on their hand or something in the forest school, and they're constantly wanting to go and wash their hands when they start. Now, I'm not saying, I know hygiene's important, but also getting dirty is important as well, because it's great for the immune system as well.
Yeah.
So we live in a very sterile world nowadays, sort of
especially since COVID.
Definitely. Sanitizers, anti-bac sprays everywhere. Some places are so sterile that young people ain't getting, they're not introduced to these germs and not building up their immune systems for when they're older. I think a big tell of that was when, after COVID, wasn't it? Once we was all allowed out again, and lots of other illnesses went round, didn't there? Lots of people suddenly got colds and stuff, and it's because we hadn't been exposed for so long. Was wearing masks and sanitizers and stuff. So anyway, so going back to this child, well, I wouldn't say mortified, but really I need to go and wash my hands. So fine, go and wash your hands then, but you're going to be washing them all day while you're in the woods, because you can't really do much without getting muddy hands. But if you sort of see that child now, and they'll be sliding down our mud hills, and we've got a very big hole that's been dug over our woods now. There was an old hole there, and it's been dug even deeper, and it's currently full up with sort of a sludge and mud. And it's probably frozen at the moment, but down here. But it's quite a big muddy hole now at the moment. So they just love sort of clambering in that, building bridges over it, stuff. So but now they're just that child's now is just quite happy being muddy. It's just that change of experience. It's just, if children don't do it, they're not used to it. So there's endless ones like that. It's just about getting them into that environment and getting used to being a bit dirty. But there's a hell of a lot of things. I'm not going to go into it now because I can't remember the whole breakdown of it myself. But there's goodness in soil as well. Soil's not all bad. It's not all terrible. There's lots of things in soil that are actually good for us. There are sort of all sorts of things in there that can be beneficial to us as well. So a little bit of it's not going to necessarily do you no harm to rub it, scratching your mouth, getting a little bit in your mouth and ingesting it. It's what we've sort of we've adapted to over the years, but it's kind of wearing away recently.
Well, I mean that especially with COVID time, a lot of us, didn't we? We all, but many of us retracted inside, and then it's getting back out there, and especially for youngsters as well. It must be quite daunting potentially. That there's this open space, and it's okay to get messy, dirty, and actually really connect and communicate with other young people as well. What feedback do you get from parents?
We get good feedback from parents, actually. We most of the stuff we stick out for reviews, like after people have used us and stuff, and we always get really good feedback. The majority of kids come back regularly, not all of them, for forest schools and stuff. But we get good regular uptake. We like to sort of operate out in going to our forest schools. We operate on sort of what we call a free play ethos. So we allow them time to play when they're at forest school, because that's our sort of one of our ethoses over our forest school, because that's how children learn. So so a lot of the parents like that sort of side of thing because it's not so structured. They get a lot of structure during school. They get a lot of structure in. I mean, clubs are good. I'm not knocking schools or clubs. I don't mean that, but you know, if kids go swimming, it's very structured, timetabled. If they go football, it's structured and timetabled, and they don't get much time just to do what they want to do. By doing what they want to do, obviously we monitor and facilitate it, but doing what they want to do is how kids learn most of the time, because when they're doing what they want to do, they've got no restrictions to it, because that's what they want to do at that moment in time. So they get fully engrossed in it, and that's when they really learn sort of the most, and remember it as well. It's not being forced upon them. So so that's kind of we've naturally grown into that ethos as well, I'd say. It wasn't necessarily there when Let's Get Out started, but it's just led that way a bit, really.
It's the word sort of freedom within, sort of almost like freedom within safe boundaries. You know, it really sort of struck a chord with me as you said that, because one of my roles is as a counsellor with adults and with young people in a school setting, and really hearing and what I hear from young people as well is very much about how life is so sort of structured. You know, it's in school, it's then this, it's then that, and a lot of time there's expectations on our young people from parents, from teachers, in all different ways, and obviously in the hope of for their benefit. But actually, where is that gap? Where is that time when they can literally go, well, hey, off you go?
Definitely.
You know, there's a bit of freedom within that safe boundary, within that safe environment.
If you had a child who does lots of clubs, for example, and I'm not saying the clubs ain't good, like I said earlier, but if you actually mapped out the times around school as well, and all the times of the clubs, if you actually sat there and mapped that out, and you think, you know, the child needs to sleep for that many hours, then you've got to have a meal time. They've got that much time for school. They've got that time for club. You know, I mean, a lot of clubs are before school clubs. There's quite early ones, and some of them are after, or they might go to a childminder if parents are working. And sometimes if you map that out, weekend clubs as well, and then you go, how much free time has that child got in a week? It's quite scary. You know, we've done it a few times with almost imaginary children, and some children we kind of know, but just map it out if they do that club. And once you work out the actual free time they have, it's quite scary, really.
Totally hear that, and totally hear that from young people in terms of that anxiety. I mean, I just listened to you then, I was feeling quite anxious, Duncan, you know, in terms of that always to be doing. I know it might sound a bit of a cliche, but in terms of, I can just imagine being in a forest school environment, being on a camping day overnight, being, you know, and choosing what to do as and when. That expectation stops, that engagement starts to come about, that creativity starts to flow, and really embracing the experience of it all.
Don't be scared of the words "I'm bored" with kids. That's one of the things we've sort of done stuff on it before, because once you hear "I'm bored," it's quite hard at the time. So even if at forest school, if we have a child comes up and goes, "I'm bored," we've learned to step back from that a little bit, because kids do not stay bored for very long at all. They just won't, and that's when they really start to change, because they won't just sit there and go, "I'm bored," and not do anything. They might sit there for 5 minutes or something saying, "I'm bored," but that's when they go off, and that's when the sort of, you know, the mother of all invention, as they say, starts. You know, that's what boredom does. So it creates, whereas if you hear "I'm bored" and throw an iPad or any other technology, other tablets are available, I suppose. Just and hand a child one of those, they've got an instant dopamine fix with being on YouTube or whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you've lost all that creativity. That chance of all that
Yeah.
creativity is gone.
Yeah, it's that curiosity and creativity, as you say. Do
Yeah.
they, depending on their age, of course, but do they get to experience sort of creating a bushfire and so forth as well?
Oh yeah, we do all that. Yeah, we create
Yeah,
fires. Yeah, yeah. We have a couple of lads who come to our forest school quite regularly. So when they come along, we leave the fire to start for them now. They're slightly older.
yeah,
Obviously we monitor them and stuff, but
yeah,
it's their job. You know, they go and collect the first bits of wood to start it. They go and collect the tinder. They get the ferro rod and they light the fire and get it going.
love it.
And that sort of becomes their little mission when they come in. They kind of know they're going to do it, and they do a good job. Whereas again, you know, thing with fires, a lot of people are scared to go near a fire or get their kids near fires. But as long as it's done in a manageable, you know, in a sort of overseen way at the beginning,
Yeah,
um, you know, there's no reason why they can't start a fire. You know, I mean,
yeah,
removing them from that risk is probably the worst risk
yeah,
you can do, because then they grow older and don't know how to even deal with anything.
yeah, yeah.
I've
And
had
how many opportunities do they get to do that in usual day-to-day life, perhaps, for many of the children to actually
yeah,
experience that and look after a fire, create a fire as well.
yeah. But there's a lot more going on than the actual just the fire there as
Yeah,
well. It's when you look at the bigger picture of having a fire. So they know they've got to collect the right materials, so they've got to know types of trees. They've got to know where the drier stuff's going to be. But then they've also got all the safety elements as well. They've got to think of the moisture, the damp, and then who's around, what other kids are
yeah,
around, how to behave in our fire circle, so they know they've got to abide by the rules, putting the tools back when they're finished. So it's adding responsibilities as well. So
yeah,
it's a much bigger thing than just lighting a fire.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
having responsibility for something that's potentially dangerous.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, which again, a lot of time we can be overly protective about,
yeah,
so that
definitely, yeah,
again, it's in the obviously in the balance of what's reasonable and what's safe, but also that encouragement to build their confidence and their courage and keeping themselves safe as
yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've had some older, let's say older, sort of slightly older ones, sort of around about early teens, just before teens.
yeah,
Never used a match, and it's sort of, you know, when we do our little firelighting practice, and you know, I'm not, you know, that's the way it is. But when you
yeah,
think when you're that age and they've never even used a match, I mean, I suppose it's different now. We haven't all got open fires as much as maybe when
sure,
I was younger.
sure,
There was a lot more use for it,
yeah,
but it's still sort of just one of them skills, but you see how scared they are to actually use it.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas, yeah, just something as simple as lighting a match, and it's sort of. But then once they've done it, you see the joy on their face, because
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
quite amazing. They go away and they're like, "Oh wow, I lit a match,
Oh,
oh, I lit a fire, yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah." They all have to go home stinking of smoke. That's the
Oh,
rules.
well,
Yeah.
that I'm sure that's an okay compromise in terms of what they're benefiting. So when we so I said we did the podcast a few years ago. What would you say is the key? So just two questions here, then, Duncan. I'm mindful of time. What would you say is the key standout sort of progress for you in the past 2 years? And what are your sort of key focus on going forwards for 2023 in terms of offering or development opportunities that Let's Get Out is providing?
I think on our sort of progresses with we're in some more schools now running their Duke of Edinburgh
Yeah,
expeditions, and we're also offering open expeditions, so anyone can come and join our open
mm,
expeditions who's of the right age and stuff. So being in more schools, we've sort of reached out to more. So when we go into schools, although we charge per participant, uh, being a CIC, we also offer free places to children who wouldn't be able to afford to do it.
yeah,
So the fact that we're in more schools means, you know, by that offering alone, there's more sort of young people completing their expeditions
yeah,
than they wouldn't have had the chance.
mm,
So yeah, so we've grown that side, and also we're sort of more on the fundraising now as well. So we're getting some grants in as well to do some more projects. So
wonderful.
we've had national lottery funding to do bushcraft courses for some children in care.
Okay.
So so that's starting this year. So there's some good things like that going on now,
Yeah.
where we're sort of expanding out into them different areas to engage different audiences and children to getting the benefits from the outdoors. Yeah. So yeah.
Brilliant. So you've got the Duke of Edinburgh, there's the forest schools, there's the national funding, which is providing extra support for those that are in care circumstances, and then also the general public. Can their young people come and join you as well on certain activities at certain times in certain locations?
Yeah, we run. Well, we've got a woodland sort of our woodlands in Essex, so we run like monthly clubs there as well.
Yeah.
So sort of on Saturdays, we do like a bushcraft club. It's called the Hornets. So kids can come in there, and we just sort of, again, we let them a bit of free time, but then also we mix it up with learning new skills.
Yeah.
We also do a home educated kids forest school as well.
Wonderful.
And then we do some specials here and there as well, like some sort of one-off days and things as well, which are going well. Yeah. So
brilliant. That sounds just awesome. And also I can just imagine that, you know, with as we're getting more and more confident, hopefully, I mean, obviously there's still lots of strains and stresses out there in the day-to-day life, but in terms of sort of COVID, and that seems to be more in control now, that we're getting back to that more usual activity and engaging in all sorts of different ways. And hopefully as well, our children are getting out more, and maybe after listening to this episode, Duncan, that parents might be interested in making contact with you for their young people to join you. In terms of doing that, how would they go about doing that? Could you give your details of your website?
Well, our website's letsgetout.co.uk. So it's pretty much got all of our information about our things on there, and we're also on Facebook. So Facebook's where we sort of post a lot of our stuff, and that's, if you just search for Let's Get Out CIC, you should hopefully pop up on there. Yeah. Can I just add one little thing, Melissa, before I go? It's one of the things, because we're just talking about COVID there, but obviously we've got the cost of living crisis now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's, we notice the difference with that as well. So if we're doing Duke of Edinburgh expeditions and forest schools and stuff, and not through anyone's fault, but everyone's having to sort of tighten the purse strings a bit and stuff. So it's another thing on the horizon that is going to affect our young people as well. So after coming out of COVID and them not having the chance to get outdoors, we've got this on the horizon as well. So it's just something to bear in mind, that try not to let the going outdoors slip for the young people, because it is so good for them. I mean, even if you can't afford to send them somewhere, maybe just get them out for a walk, or take them local parks or forests themselves, just to keep
getting outside.
Yeah.
And just to add into that as well, just a reminder that you're a SIC company, which means community of interest company, which means the profits go back into the community as an organisation. And I'm going to put you on the spot here as well before we go. What would you say is special about Let's Get Out in compared to sort of maybe other offerings out there? If parents were considering for their young people to come along, what is it about your USP,
well, we like to be very personable with the kids. So maybe there's that side of it. We have a good relationship with the young people who come on our courses. Don't want to get too big-headed, but we seem to get on with most of them. Lots, you're talking about hundreds, if not probably thousands of young people throughout a year, and we don't clash with many of them. We seem to get on really well with them between us all. So I think it is, it's about making eye contact, smiling, and just talking to them as if they're sort of, we don't shout and holler at them.
I'm sure lots of them would appreciate that.
Feel like it sometimes. No, I think that's what it is. Just treating them, they're young human beings. They're not, they're not just there to be sort of moaned at. So it's all about giving them a good experience. That's really sort of what we try and do. So make sure they all leave wanting to come back and do some more. That's the key.
Yeah, and as you said, you do have them coming back, and you know, knowing you as I've got to know you, Duncan, and in my role, my capacity, what I find is really, really so key in however we're engaging with young people is the relationship. And if they enjoy your company, and there's you know, fun to be had, and there's a sort of a mutual respect, and like you say, not the shouting, not the set structure, that's offering something to them that I'm sure lots of young people will grab an opportunity to experience and get outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you for having me.
It's been great talking to you. I hope for anyone who's watching, listening, that you've enjoyed this first episode that we're going to put out on YouTube. So really appreciate it. Catch up with you again soon, Duncan, and
Yeah,
we'll keep in touch.
Brilliant. Thanks, Melissa.
All right. Take care.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.